Pushkin. Previously on the Chinatown sting.
First of all, you didn't think of nothing back then. You're just thinking, oh, it's easy to make money. That was it.
There were a lot of dangerous gangsters out there in the Asian underworld who made a name for themselves, and Onionhead wasn't one of them.
This is therefore to command you, the said members of the Royal Hong Kong Police, to deliver the body of the said Johnny Eng, known as Sui Hung Eng, Chong Tao, and Onionhead, into the custody of the Commissioners of the Correctional Services, and be there safely kept.
After spending over 2 years fighting extradition from Hong Kong, Johnny Eng was flown back to New York City in the company of U.S. Marshals. It was November 1st, 1991. They took him to the MCC. That's the imposing jail not too far from Chinatown. He would be held there while he awaited his trial. It had taken a lot of time and money to get Johnny Eng back to the States. It looked like a victory in the country's war on drugs, an effort that had been in the works for years. The week Johnny was flown back to the U.S., Congress held yet another hearing on Asian organized crime and noted Johnny's return.
The Hip Sing controls the Flying Dragons gang located on Pell and Doyle Streets. Johnny Eng, aka Onionhead, was the main leader until 2 years ago when he fled to Hong Kong as a result of federal narcotics charges. Onionhead was extradited to the U.S.
But the reason this hearing stood out to me is because of 2 witnesses who testified at it. They both owned or ran small businesses in Manhattan's Chinatown. They're among the few figures I've been able to find from this time who dared to make any public statements against the gangs. And reading over their testimony, it doesn't seem like the arrests of people like Onionhead made them feel much safer.
So this is from witness number 1.
I went over the transcripts with my co-reporter, Shuyu Wang. This witness testified not only using a false name, but from behind a screen because he was so worried about retaliation.
I am a Chinese businessman who has owned 2 businesses in New York City in the Chinatown area. I have had the experience of being victimized by more than one gang. I reported the incident to the police. Very few merchants in Chinatown ever do this because they fear retaliation against themselves and their families. Many also fear the police because they are in the country illegally, and they're hesitant to have any contact with the authorities. The gang scared us, and we always pay because we know that they have the ability to ruin our businesses. I am testifying here today under a false name and behind a screen because I will likely be injured or killed if the gangs find out I am here.
I was really shocked at the end when he said that he's testifying behind, not only is he using a false name, he's also testifying behind a screen because he's so worried about retaliation.
It's a very small community, right? Back then, Chinatown was only a few blocks. So by testifying, the business owners basically put themselves at huge risk.
Yeah. The second witness also testified behind a screen. He said, I'm a manager at a restaurant located at the heart of Chinatown, New York City. Because my business location is controlled by a gang named the Flying Dragons, I'm constantly threatened and intimidated by them. As a manager, I have to try to show them a very respectful manner. Otherwise, I put myself in danger.
Yeah, for people that's really try to settle down and support their family, just to earn themselves a life, a safe life to live around the area. It's you don't know what will happen to you, to your family, to your business. You don't even know what mistake, quote unquote mistake, that you would make when you were interacting with these gang people.
And that's why I think going to Washington and speaking out about what was going on was a huge leap of faith, right?
Right. But would that lead to real safety? They don't know, but they choose to take the step and just try to break the cycle that the gangs have created in Chinatown.
Congress clearly wanted to put a stop to the gangs. And so did people like Beryl, the prosecutor who had been working on the Johnny Eng case for 4 years. And when he finally came to the U.S. to stand trial, the moment of truth had arrived. Beryl was now preparing to bring down Johnny, the head of the powerful Flying Dragons gang, for good. I'm Lidia Jean Kott, and this is the Chinatown Sting. Episode 5, The Mastermind. As it happens, Beryl wasn't the only prosecutor trying to bring Johnny Eng to justice. A prosecutor in another part of the city had been doing the same thing. Her name is Karen Seymour.
I had flown to Hong Kong for extradition hearings, and so this was a case I really, really cared about, and I wasn't about to give it away for someone else to try.
Karen had been pursuing a separate case against Johnny based on events that happened in the spring of 1988. After federal authorities had disrupted the mail package scheme, Johnny did not lie low. Instead, he responded, allegedly, by looking for new ways to bring drugs into the country. And this is where we need to take a side journey into the world of restaurant equipment. According to the government, Johnny had asked a friend of his, a guy nicknamed Fat Kwok, if he had any ideas for smuggling heroin. And Fat Kwok did. He had a cousin named Six Finger Lou, who had 6 fingers on one hand and a noodle shop in Boston. Six Finger Lou said he had ordered bean sprout washers from Hong Kong, and the machines had arrived without being searched by customs. So why not just hide heroin in one of those?
And so that was what Johnny Eng was approached, and he said, okay, yeah, let's use it. Let's load up heroin.
Court docs would later say Fat Kwok and Six Finger Lou flew to Hong Kong. Once they got there, they procured a bean sprout washing machine. It's about the size of a large and narrow bathtub. Inside, it has these spinning cylinders that move the water around to remove the debris from the bean sprouts. Six Finger Lou spent all night welding these cylinders so he could hide 170 pounds of heroin inside of them.
So what Johnny Eng was able to do, unlike before where he was sending small packages, is do this sort of mother load shipment of this Southeast Asian heroin, which was very, very valuable.
This shipment, worth millions of dollars, made it out of Hong Kong all the way to Logan Airport in Boston. But then
the DEA intercepts it. They replace the heroin with, a fake, and they deliver it. It goes to this guy, Six Finger Lou. He picks up the machine, and they arrest him. But they didn't really want just to get Six Finger Lou because they knew that he's the lowest to blow. And the real goal is to get up the chain. And so they flipped him, so to speak. They basically cut a deal with him immediately.
The plan had been for Six Finger Lou to drive from Boston to New York to deliver the bean sprout washing machine to his cousin, Fat Kwok. And that trip went ahead, except now Six Finger Lou was escorted on this drive by undercover DEA agents. When Lou arrived in Midtown Manhattan, he met up with his cousin and this other guy who was also involved in the scheme. Six Finger Lou claimed he was too tired to take the bean sprout machine out of his car. So they did, or began to, because as soon as they touched the machine, they were ambushed by DEA agents.
And then that led to the case against Johnny Eng.
Karen was a prosecutor in the Southern District of New York, a federal prosecutor's office in Manhattan. She was working on the sprout washer case because that's where the bust happened. Beryl Howell was a prosecutor in the Eastern District of New York, a federal prosecutor's office in Brooklyn. She was working on the mail package case because the successful bust by federal authorities on that scheme happened in Brooklyn. But now a judge told both prosecutors that since these cases were against the same defendant, they should combine their efforts. All cases against Johnny Eng would be tried together in the Eastern District of New York, which seems logical, except for one thing.
I mean, because the Eastern and Southern District of New York were great rivals.
The rivalry between the Eastern District and the Southern District is sometimes compared to another rivalry between the Mets and the Yankees. The Southern District in Manhattan is like the Yankees. It was created first, under President George Washington. Many famous financial fraud cases are tried in the SDNY. The Eastern District in Brooklyn is like the Mets. It was founded later under President Lincoln's administration. To this day, the ED&Y is still perceived to be the scrappier office. Now, the Yankees and Mets were being asked to play on the same team on the Mets' home turf. Beryl remembers hearing that they were going to be working together, and she wondered how her rival prosecutor would take it.
Probably, if I'd been in Karen's shoes, she probably would have been a little bit nervous, like trying a case in front of judges she didn't know, in a courthouse she didn't know.
Beryl had partnered with Kathy Palmer, another prosecutor in the Eastern District of New York, and Karen Seymour says she had no idea how this was going to work out.
But they couldn't have been more fun and more lovely, and we all became very fast friends. And we together, not knowing each other very well before, just joined forces, and it was 3 women against Johnny Eng.
Johnny Eng's lead defense attorney was Gerald Shargel. Shargel was a big deal in New York City. He'd been the lawyer of Italian-American mobster John Gotti, nicknamed the Teflon Don because no criminal charges ever seemed to stick to him, at least for a while. After multiple high-profile trials, he did eventually get life in prison. Shargel has since died, but he's interviewed in the documentary America's Most Evil, Machine Gun Johnny.
It's my privilege to represent Johnny Eng. When you're fighting for someone's liberty or for someone's life, that's a very weighty and heavy responsibility, but one that I welcome.
While Shargel welcomed his new client, 3 women prosecutors prepared their case. They'd surmounted international borders, institutional rivalries, and reluctant witnesses to build an argument that Johnny Eng was a major heroin smuggler and a mastermind. Still, the prosecutors knew their case had one major weakness, and it was going to be the hardest obstacle of all to overcome. Before any trial, there are pretrial motions. In Johnny Eng's case, the pretrial phase dragged on and on. I was able to reach 2 defense lawyers on Johnny's team about what it was like to work for him. One didn't want to talk to me on the phone, but she sent me an email saying, quote, "He was a nice guy. Something I remember, because I'm a dog person, is that he trained his 2 Cane Corso dogs to meet his kids at the school bus stop and accompany them home." Johnny's other attorney said she didn't want to be recorded because she doesn't like how defense lawyers are usually represented in the media. But she told me that Johnny paid for his defense team in cash. He told her that the money came directly from gatherings in Chinatown to support his defense. It was in small, crumpled bills. She had to spend hours counting them. He was either very loved or very feared, she said. I told Beryl about that.
Was it in 5, 10s, and 20s?
Yeah.
And he told them that it was not drug proceed money, but it was instead 5, 10s, and 20s that he'd collected at parties from friends who believed in him. And that's what she told you.
Beryl looked at me skeptically, her eyebrows raised. And I got a sense of how intense those pretrial back and forths might have been between the prosecution and the defense. Beryl thinks that at one court appearance or another, Johnny may have noticed something about her. She was pregnant.
It just seemed like he was, seeing my shape change as time went on and thinking, this might be very helpful if the prosecutor who'd been living with this case for a number of years wasn't able to try this case.
Beryl thought Johnny and his team might be creating delays on purpose. All told, Johnny spent almost a year in pretrial detention. His trial was finally scheduled to begin on November 16th, 1992. And for Beryl,
it was sort of a race against time.
This was going to be a big trial. It was expected to last a few weeks. And Beryl's baby was expected in a few weeks as well. Have you been to the courthouse in Brooklyn?
Yeah. I mean, it's super close to my office.
My impression was wood everywhere. It had wood paneled ceilings and a wood floor. And then, there was
it almost felt like you're doing a trial within a cabinet.
Yeah, it was like within a small cabinet. Like there's not even that many seats for people to watch the trial. But I talked to this one reporter, Gerald Posner, who was there at the time.
I was only there for like probably 3 days, but it was packed. It was a great New York City trial.
He had written a book about the international heroin trade. So that's why he was at this trial.
Right.
And he was particularly interested in what Johnny looked like because he could see Johnny sitting at the defense table.
One of the things that was so amazing to me about Johnny Eng is that he looks so young. We've seen pictures of him and everything else, but until you see him in person, you forget what a baby-faced gangster could look like. You expect him to come back from this extradition battle of 3 years and having run this one of the largest heroin rings around and becoming the leader of the Flying Dragons and everything else is going to prematurely age him, but it didn't.
So Johnny was 36 years old.
Fairly young, I would say.
He was actually young at the time of the trial. And I have a photo of him from the time.
Okay.
His mugshot.
Yeah, like people could mistaken him as like a late 20-year-old in this photo.
Yeah, he has like a little mustache and a goatee. He's wearing these big like gold-rimmed aviator glasses.
Mm-hmm.
And what stood out to me is he does have a little puff of hair. He's just looking straight ahead. It's kind of like driver's license photo vibes. But that was not his vibe in court. During the trial, he didn't take the stand. It's usually not smart to do that as a defendant. And Johnny seems like he was a pretty smart guy. But he was apparently pretty expressive during the trial.
Yeah.
I heard that, according to newspaper articles and stuff at the time,
Mm-hmm.
he was smiling all throughout. Johnny's actually known for always smiling, but his smile, it's kind of hard to tell whether it's like a friendly smile.
Or like the passive-aggressive smile.
Or like a threatening smile.
Yeah. So we're in the trial. What was the opening statement like? How did they start the case?
Like the mail package trial, Beryl started this one. And she began by talking about these mail packages that had tea and stuffed animals and also heroin. Then she described how the bean sprout washing machine was intercepted by a customs agent in Boston. And then this is what she said to the jury.
Now, these two huge shipments of heroin were discovered months apart, opposite ends of the country, by two different customs inspectors. But you are going to learn during the trial that these schemes had one thing in common. The mastermind behind both of these heroin shipments was one man, the defendant, Johnny Eng, the man sitting at the defense table.
I have Beryl's notes from the trial. And on one page, she has the word mastermind. It's written in all caps.
Mm-hmm.
She wanted to prove that Johnny was the, quote, principal administrator, organizer, or leader of the enterprise.
Right.
This was the first charge against him, and it was also the most serious charge.
Mm-hmm.
Because, if Johnny was found guilty of this, he was facing a lifetime in prison without parole.
I mean, she spent years, obviously, investigating and collecting evidence and information, talking to witnesses, trying to get them to turn their back against Johnny.
Well, the truth is the case was going to be tough because Johnny was so good at insulating himself from both of these schemes. So there's very little material evidence. They had some, and some of it they were saving till the end of the trial. But really, the whole trial depended on the testimony of these cooperating witnesses.
Right.
And one of the prosecutors, the one from the Southern District of New York, Karen Seymour, she talked to me about this.
It was so cooperator dependent. This is a case where there was very clear evidence about the drug deals, but it wasn't so clearly linked to Johnny Eng. And so it was, a case that truly, if you didn't believe the cooperators, you didn't have enough evidence to convict the defendants.
Tina Wong wasn't testifying at this trial.
Right.
After she was shot, Beryl felt like she was hiding something, and she didn't trust her enough to put her on the stand. So Beryl had two main cooperating witnesses, Wah and Michael Yu, or Fox.
Mm-hmm.
They had been in jail for years now, waiting for their own trial, waiting for Johnny's extradition, and then waiting for Johnny's trial to start. They really didn't want to testify against him, but doing so was their only way out.
True.
Remember, Wah told us that even now she's still worried about being viewed as a snitch.
If you come out to the street and people know you snitch, you talked about, you gave him up,
Uh-huh.
it would be bad. It's like you're going to have people that don't like you. You know what I'm saying? And you don't want that. So that's what I'm saying. If I did something with honor, okay, come on, interview me, you know?
It sounds like a very difficult decision to make in face of something that's so huge that's got to change your life. Whether you choose to protect yourself or to honor something that you hold high values of, like your friendship, like your connection with other people.
Yeah. And Fox felt the same way. He wrote a letter to Beryl, literally begging not to have to take the stand. I asked Beryl to read a little bit of what that letter said.
I'm writing to you because I started having panic and feel the pressure is coming from both inside and outside. So if it's possible, please exclude me from testifying at Johnny Eng's trial because I'm just a small figure in his case.
Wah is the one.
I'm only her puppet from the beginning to the end. I have to run and hide from place to place, just like a rat, to stay alive. So please do a little consideration for me.
So yeah, this whole case, it basically rested on these witnesses who really did not want to be testifying. And, they'd also been convicted of crimes. And so that meant that Johnny's lawyer, Gerald, he only had to do one thing. He had one simple task.
To attack the testimonies, like their credibility.
Exactly. Because all you need is reasonable doubt, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's true because jury, they're all humans.
Yeah. And I feel like people love to think they're very good at catching liars.
Yeah, being a true detective.
So one of the first witnesses to take the stand was one of the women who received the heroin packages for Johnny. So someone pretty low down in the scheme.
I think those women largely who testified, who received packages, didn't really, most of them have that much to say about Johnny Eng, but they set the stage really well. And I thought they had a lot of credibility.
And then who came next?
Wah. She took the stand and on direct, Beryl asked her questions and she said that she gave these women's addresses to Johnny and she did this, in Johnny's direction. And Johnny even was pressuring her to get him more and more addresses. And he was the, quote, boss of this heroin ring.
Mm-hmm.
And I spoke to another reporter who was there at the trial. His name is Fredric, Dannen, and he was writing for the New Yorker. He actually still remembers Wah's cross-examination.
The moment Cross would begin, Shargel would start projecting his question before he even left the defense table. And he was a tall guy, and he'd use his body. It was almost like a charging lion. It's like a boxer coming out of ringside, like the round begins and he's already on his feet. He wants to get into the fight.
Here's a little segment of how it went. Do you want to play Shargel because you're a lawyer?
Sure. I will try to be as intimidating as possible.
Yeah, try and leap at me across the table like a lion.
You sold drugs, right?
Yes.
And you did drugs?
Yes.
You work in the gambling parlors?
Yes.
You cheated on your taxes, didn't you?
Probably did, yes.
Would you lie to get out of jail?
No.
Never?
No.
Because you wouldn't stoop to something like that, would you?
No.
No further questions. He didn't even give her any time to think.
Yeah, it's just like bang, 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 bang.
I've seen that before. It's kind of like the defense, they would be like, just answer yes or no. I'm not asking for more. But in that way, they're leading the witness to say something that they might not admit to.
Shargel definitely rattled her. I mean, you could see from her body language that he unnerved her a little bit.
It's crazy to think about Wah going through this while Johnny is sitting at the defense table. Here she was betraying him and then being attacked by this lawyer.
So that was bad for Wah. Then who's next to get put on the stand?
Her ex-boyfriend, Michael Yu, Fox. Even though he begged not to do this, he did have to take the stand. And that DEA agent, Peter Matesser, he remembers things going even worse for Fox than they did for Wah.
I think Michael Yu really took a beating from Shargel.
So the trial took some time, right?
Yeah, 3 weeks.
Do we know anything about people outside the trial reacting to it, from the gangs from Chinatown?
According to the trial transcripts, there was a guy who was thought to be Johnny's brother, and he approached one of the jurors when they were walking out of the courtroom, and he said, "Do you believe in the witnesses?"
Oh.
And then he said, "God bless you."
Oh. I feel like there's like some violations.
It's like, you shouldn't really do that.
Yeah, you shouldn't do that. What was the part that Beryl remembered the most from all of this?
So for her, the most memorable part is actually like an administrative part of the trial. The charging conference, you probably know it comes after all the evidence has been presented, and it's before the summations and the verdict. So basically the two, opposing sides meet with the judge, and they go through the language for every single charge and the instructions that they're going to give to the jury. And Beryl was the one who was going to present at this charging conference, and she was 9 months pregnant at the time, and there were 17 charges against Johnny.
So this charging conference was very long. In my recollection, it was about 3 to 4 hours. And I stood for the whole time.
In heels?
Well, low heels. And when you're 9 months pregnant, you've got so much compression on your lungs. It's hard to do public speaking in the normal way because you can't fill your lungs with enough air to give your normal delivery. So it was hard to catch my breath. And I stood through the whole charging conference and questions that Judge Reggie had for me, and she never invited me to be seated to respond to her questions. And I went into labor that night.
When we come back, the jury gets to hear about a piece of material evidence, and it relates to Tina Wang. Right before Johnny Eng's trial ended, Beryl gave birth to a baby girl. She weighed 7 pounds, 12 ounces. So she wasn't there when the prosecution gave its final bit of evidence to the jury. And it had to do with Tina Wang. When Shuyu and I interviewed Tina, she told us a lot about that trip she took in 1988 to Asia. It was with her childhood friend Wah and Wah's boyfriend Fox, among others. She told us about visiting Indonesia and how they went to the beach.
And see these little crabs? There's like 1,000 of them, so it look like the rock is black, but when you go there, it's white because all the crabs walk away. It's like thousands.
But Tina had spent the first part of this vacation in Hong Kong, and about that portion of the trip, she was vague.
Me and this other girl, we go shopping, and Wah will go off, so I don't know what she was doing, and I didn't want to know.
That trip to Asia, it turned out to be very important for the government's case. Kathy Palmer, the other prosecutor from the Eastern District of New York, talked about it during her closing arguments. Remember, this case hinged on the testimony of cooperating witnesses, and Johnny's lawyer had done a pretty good job of making those witnesses seem untrustworthy. Johnny had been very careful to work through a web of intermediaries so no one could trace anything directly back to him. But he'd made a slip. Federal authorities had phone records of calls in and out of Johnny Eng's Hong Kong apartment. And one of those phone calls from way back in 1988 went from that apartment to the New York home of someone associated with the drug trade, Tina Wang. The call happened on Tina and Wah's last day in Hong Kong, before they all went to Indonesia. It was a 2-minute phone call. The prosecutor speculated that maybe Tina was in Johnny's apartment and made that call to tell her husband that they were going to Indonesia. Who knows? But what's important is this. That phone call was material evidence, linking Johnny directly to Tina, and therefore to Wah and Fox, who are all convicted of heroin smuggling. The prosecution presented this evidence at the end of the trial. "Take a look at the records," the prosecutor told the jurors. And that was close to the last thing they heard, other than the jury instructions before they filed out to begin deliberating. Tina Wang wasn't at Johnny's trial, but she still played a role, unwittingly. She says she doesn't remember either being in Johnny's apartment or calling home.
I don't remember any phone call. So now I kind of feel bad that I get somebody in trouble.
You do?
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to get in trouble on your own. I don't want to be the cause of it.
Would he get in trouble? The jury went off to deliberate all the counts against Johnny Eng, including the biggest one. Whether or not he was the mastermind of these schemes to smuggle in millions of dollars worth of heroin from Asia. But Beryl, after years of fighting to get to this moment, was beyond reach. She was still in the hospital with her new baby.
We both came down with a fever, and that's very, very serious for a newborn. And so that next week, when the verdict was coming in and the summations and rebuttals were happening, I was in intensive care with the new baby. So I had my mind on very, very different things from the outcome of the trial.
While Beryl was with her baby in intensive care, the rest of the prosecution team and the defense team hung around the courthouse, waiting. The hours turned into days, and the days dragged on. At some point, prosecutor Karen Seymour says she started to get nervous.
We felt good about our case. We believed it. We believed our witnesses, but you just never know when it comes to the jury. It was a little bit of a nail-biter. Johnny Eng and his counsel, they were very, very cocky. We had learned that Johnny Eng had booked the Peking Duck House in Chinatown for a big party and a big celebration. And he invited all of his Flying Dragon buddies to join him. They thought they were winning this case.
Coming up on the final episode of the Chinatown Sting.
We're talking about each count. The big thing that caused the most conversation, the most deliberation, was he the mastermind?
The Chinatown Sting is written and produced by me, Lidia Jean Kott, and reported by me and Shuyu Wang. Our senior producer is Emily Martinez. Additional production by Sonia Gerwit. Our editor is Julia Barton, with additional editing by Karen Shakurji. Our story consultant is Rong Xiaoqing. Our executive producer is Jacob Smith. Our music was composed by John Sung. Sound design and additional music by Jake Gorski. Our fact checker is Kate Furby. And our show art was designed by Sean Carney. All voiceover work by Telly Leong. For more information about this episode, check out our show notes or visit pushkin.fm/Chinatown. To find more Pushkin podcasts, listen on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you like to listen to podcasts. Binge the entire season of the Chinatown Sting ad-free by subscribing to Pushkin Plus. Sign up on the show page on Apple Podcasts or at pushkin.fm/plus. Pushkin Plus subscribers can access ad-free episodes, full audiobooks, and exclusive binges of other true crime podcasts throughout the year.